Good evening, and thank you for joining us. My name is Atlas Worldwide, and I will be moderating tonight's Voters' Choice debate among the candidates for the Ridgeway County District Attorney's Office. This is the second election in Ridgeway County, and we are here to help you make informed decisions by asking the candidates questions that will give you a glimpse to how they are going to improve Ridgeway County. There are some ground rules that the candidates have agreed to. Candidates will not speak out of order, and they will stay between the agreed upon time limits. If a candidate violates these rules, he or she will be given one warning. A second infraction will lead to a removal from this debate. Here is the format for the debate tonight. When asked a question, the first candidate will have 60 seconds to respond, followed by a 30-second rebuttal period from each of the other candidates. Then, at the moderator's discretion, a 30-second response from the initial candidate. We have a fair amount of questions for the candidates today. These questions have been uniquely created by a team consisting of Jetpack Boy and Captain Nico. We asked some citizen questions that were obtained from a questionnaire conducted by the Ridgeway News Network. And you, the people watching on Twitch, can ask the candidates a question through Twitter, and you can start now by using hashtag RNNDebate. And we may choose your questions to ask candidates later on in this program. The two candidates here tonight are hoping to become the first Ridgeway County District Attorney. Joining us today is Site Owner and Hunter Yeyes. Thank you both for being here today. So now, let's begin. The candidates may now give their opening statements. The order in which was determined beforehand at random. God, I cannot read. Hunter, yes, you are first. Go ahead.
Thank you, Atlas World. Good evening, everyone. Let me introduce myself. My name is Hunter, and I am interested in real-life politics, the military, and the economy. My goal is to serve justice equally and right. Regardless of the outcome of this prejudiced race for the district attorney, I look forward to getting my bar certification and representing the people in the justice system without prejudice. That is all.
Thank you, sir. Now, Site Owner will deliver his opening statement. Jay, go ahead.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start off and tell y'all what the voters want. All right? They don't want no big brother district attorney constantly breathing down everyone's neck, forcing all of these policy goals or ideas. They don't want someone standing over their neck, breathing down them, second guessing their every move, or prosecuting or instilling this idea and notion of fear into everyone. So one of the things that Mr. Hunter has campaigned upon was officer accountability, but that's the only platform he was able to provide. And I think it's an exceptionally toxic one too, because the point of district attorney is not to hold officers accountable. It's to create a fun criminal justice environment. It's to play Law and Order SVU dress up. And one thing I would like to point out to everyone, and hopefully I can make it a bit more clear as well as the night goes on, but when you're talking about a peace officer and a criminal, they are two different groups that you're going to be having to look at. So police officers have their internal affairs organizations, and every law enforcement entity has them, and they constantly self-correct each other. And when the district attorney getting into that process, it creates this room and a period for a lot of jeopardy for everyone. See, a peace officer has a lot more to lose in a criminal case than, per se, a random criminal. And I think that's something that needs to be very, very important to understand. If a random criminal gets prosecuted by the district attorney, you know, it's just any other case. But if a police officer gets prosecuted by the district attorney and there's that criminal conviction going up on him, he's done. That's his career right there. He's fired from everything, and he will never be able to get a job. He will never be able to get a position anywhere again. That is his end right there.
All right, Mr. Site Owner, thank you very much. You ran over your time. First question will be going to you, Mr. Site Owner. Why should the public vote for you as their district attorney rather than your opponent? 1 minute starts now.
First thing, I'm not a communist. The second reason is because I want to make this fun. I'm not here to be an asshole. I'm not here to make the office a collection of assholes trying to second guess or think that we're smarter than the other assholes in the community. That's not what we're here for. We're here to have fun. We're here to be that secondary element to the cops and robbers role play, where the cops have to, you know, give sufficient evidence, and they have to please the district attorney as you would have with any other criminal justice roleplay system. We're here to make it fun. And that's the entire goal that I'm going to be portraying, and that's the central theme that I'm going to be giving out tonight is we want to have a fun and non-toxic environment that we're going to be building up here.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. Mr. Hunter, your 30-second response starts now.
I reject the notation that there are simple two routes that you can go down in Ridgeway. There is a scope for individuals to better their ways and go legal, and given the fact in game, despite the fact that we're trying to make it realistic.
Alrighty, Mr. Hunter, thank you for that.
Oh,
Sorry, were you not done there?
yes. So those two ways can go two different routes. You can screw up and just make it go if you're going the legal way because you're trying to get a position. I agree with Mr. Site Owner. He's trying to make it safe and non-toxic for everyone. I agree with that, but I also want to instate justice and not have a hypocrite type of.
What's justice?
Oh, Mr. Senator.
I'm asking you, my friend, what's justice?
Excuse me, I am talking.
Hunter,
I'm just asking you, man, what is justice?
Mr. Senator, you can have a 30-second response starting now.
You know, you're going to hear a lot of this, fancy word and talk and a bunch of random crap coming out of this guy's mouth over here, but he has no idea the words that he's saying. He doesn't even know justice. He doesn't even know what it means. He doesn't know what prejudice means. He doesn't know all of these big words that are coming out of his mouth, but he's using them so frequently. I think that's just ridiculous.
All right, Mr. J, that's all we have time for. Thank you for that. We shall now move on to our next question. Mr. Hunter, you will be answering first. What legal experience do you have that qualifies you for this role? Mr. Hunter, you have 1 minute to explain yourself, starting now.
Right now, I currently have no legal experience, but I am currently in the process of learning with people and developing it for me. This is where I can start, and this is where I can continue trying to become a legal person.
Is that all, Mr. Hunter?
Yes, sir.
All right, Jay. 30 seconds starts now.
I'd like to point out here that Jetpack Boy, he has said this in the Ridgeway General Chat, he has said that he would offer to tutor you into becoming district attorney. So is that what we're expecting from our infantile law system? We're expecting a district attorney who doesn't know a gavel from a mallet, right? And so who's going to be the district attorney then? Is it going to be you or is it going to be Jetpack Boy, right? Are people just voting for a facade? I mean, that's a good question that needs to get asked. That's my response there. I have legal experience in Mayflower. I was a judge there. And I have legal experience in Noose. I was a judge here as well. And I ran RNG.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. Hunter, would you like a 30-second rebuttal to that or no?
Yes. So you may have the experience, but I'm not going to work under a communist government with every single department leadership running for elections. You are continuously gaining these roles because of your previous experiences and because you are well known in the community. These low people do not get a chance in the community, and this is what you're operating under.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. That is all for that question. Let's move on. Mr. Hunter, you will be answering this question first, once again, I believe. Let me just make sure. Yeah. Are either criminal offenders or law enforcement officers unfairly disadvantaged, and would you change this? Hunter, you have 1 minute on the clock to sort of explain yourself. Go ahead.
I believe everyone's disadvantaged in here. Criminal offenders both get treated unfairly, and also law enforcement officers get treated unfairly. But I believe this is because we cannot come with a peace between each other. We cannot decide one another. It's always either law enforcement or criminal offenders. I believe we should have a middle vote, and we should be able to instate justice here to stop this.
Is that all, Mr. Hunter?
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. Mr. Senator, go ahead. Your 30 seconds starts now.
Can you restate the question?
Yes. 1 second. Let me just pull it up here. Are either criminal offenders or law enforcement officers unfairly disadvantaged, and would you change this as district attorney? Go ahead.
I think it needs to be equal. I think there needs to be a nice, good middle ground. I agree with what Hunter said, but I also don't agree with how he victimized groups like a Democratic presidential candidate, right? Of course, we're going to need a middle ground. That's what's fun and that's what's fair for everyone. I think I I don't understand, how you could, lean left or lean to the right. Of course, as we get warrant system going, things are going to get harder for the criminals, but the criminals are then just going to have to get smarter. And then you're going to have investigators getting smarter, and it's going to start repelling off of each other. And then people are now going to actually have to work when it comes to getting these warrants out. There's going to have to be investigations. You're going to have to fruit out everything like that. And with the warrant system that's currently coming out right now, you're going to have evidence. You're going to have a lot more evidence, and it's going to be a lot harder to get a warrant than it would be per se in Mayflower. And that's a great thing because that makes our law enforcement work hard while still allowing them to have that, privilege and benefit. So.
Alrighty, thank you, Mr. Senator. Hunter, do you have any response to that?
No, I do not.
Alrighty, thank you. Mr. Senator, how would you structure your office, and what criteria would you set for hiring if you became the Ridgeway County District Attorney? You have 1 minute. Go ahead.
So my office will be organized in the way that we need cases and all of that handled. It's not final. When I hire people, I look for one thing and I look for opportunity and potential. So if you've read my application, and I put out the AA applications a few weeks ago, and if you actually took them, I didn't require any legal experience, but I did require people to submit a writing sample. And that's because that's how you gauge potential. And I let them write about anything that they wanted to write about. And that's where you could see their literacy skills and how well they can write. And from there, how to work them and move them. If you've talked with any of the staffers that I have hired, some of them have no legal experience at all. Some of them aren't even law enforcement officers. But they're going through my law program, and I'm sure all of them can agree that it has been a very fruitful law program. They're learning a lot from it. And I think that's how we have to hire people. We have to look for opportunity for people to grow, and that's how you get a very long-lasting system.
Alrighty, Mr. Senator, thank you. Hunter, your time starts now. Go ahead. Hunter?
Sorry about that.
You're okay.
I would structure my office by commencing with existing legal staffers and my trusted legal advisors. These individuals would be given.
So you mean Jetpack Boy as your trusted
Excuse
legal
me,
advisor?
I am talking, sir. These individuals would be giving me critical advice on whom would procure the DA's office. It's immersive that we have this situation where we can not only hire existing legal scholars, but also educate new ones. Have our own legal system, and by commend this strategy of Mr. Site Owner in the same cheese.
Alrighty, thank you, Hunter, for that. Mr. Senator, do you have any rebuttals to any of that, or would you like to abdicate your time?
Nope. I think I've said my piece about District Attorney Jetpack Boy, which is what we're going to be getting here.
Alrighty, thank you for that. Mr. Hunter, our next question here is crime a net positive or negative contributor to Ridgeway overall? You have 1 minute to respond. Your time starts now.
May you repeat the question?
Yes. Let me pull it up again. Sorry. Is crime a net positive or negative contributor to Ridgeway overall?
I believe it's both, considering that it keeps us going and it keeps us moving, but then it also has its negatives, as in like mass murders and that stuff. It overall, I think it's more of a negative, as it should not be done in the community, but we should have it. Well, no, we shouldn't have it, because it continues with this murdering and all of this other stuff.
Alrighty. Is that all you have to say?
Yes.
Alrighty. Thank you for that. Mr. Senator, your time starts now. Do you need the question repeated?
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. The question is crime a net positive or negative contributor to Ridgeway overall? Your time starts now.
I think that's a no-brainer. That's a net positive. Why would we have law enforcement officers, right? It's needed for the community to grow. Criminals are good. Like, you cannot think about this entire, stuff in a strictly utilitarian sense. If you have a candidate who comes up here saying, I'm going to end all crime, well, then we're going to have a pretty boring roleplay experience then, won't we? So it's important to support both sides of the aisle there. That's my point there.
Alrighty, thank you for that, Mr. Senator. Hunter, any response to that?
Yes, I agree with him. It is important to see both sides of it to make it fun and entertaining. But then we should also see the other side, which there is spawn killers and all this other stuff. What if you had a weapon in your inventory and you just lost it because you were spawn killed? See, there's all this other things that come in fact with it. I would like to support law enforcement on this one so that we can have a fun and equal community in here.
Alrighty, thank you, Mr. Hunter.
Can I respond?
Site, yeah, go ahead. 30 seconds.
How do you respond to a guy with a gun who's shooting you? By either A, calling for law enforcement officers to shoot him, or you get your own gun and shoot him. Right? This is America. I thought that's what guns are for, shooting each other, right?
Alright, Mr. Senator, thank you for that. And yeah, I mean, if you get shot, you get shot. So, next question here for Mr. Senator. If elected, what role would your office play with regards to the public airing their grievances with law enforcement? You have 1 minute to respond, starting now.
I think it's important that people air their grievances with the DA because we're the closest public, accountability figure to it. You also have the sheriff, but I think the DA is the one that gets the eyeglass under it all. So we would make sure that we have systems in place for people to at least air out their grievances. We would evaluate their validity, and then we would forward them to the right people. Because I'm not a person who likes to overstep others, but I still think that there are things that need to get accounted for.
Alrighty. Thank you, Mr. Senator. Hunter, your time starts now. Do you need the question again? Hunter? Okay, Hunter just left. Yeah, so I'll also do the next question. So, Mr. Senator, how would you work with the county executive and the board to ensure the adequacy of counsel when authorizing bills that justify lethal force? Go ahead. You can take as much time as you want.
He just joined back, so I'll wait for him.
Apologies. Hunter, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I just got disconnected.
No, it's okay. So the question here, I'm just gonna read it out again so you know what's up. The question here that you're going to respond to is, if elected, what role would your office play with regards to the public airing their grievances with law enforcement? You have your time to respond now.
I would say that the first protocol is with the internal affairs of our law enforcement departments. However, my DA's office would be there for anyone with whom IA has failed and would be available to prosecute unlawful behavior.
Is that all, Mr. Hunter?
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. Site owner, do you have any rebuttal to that question? Or
no, sir.
Alrighty. Thank you both. Mr. Hunter, how would you work with the county executive and the county board to ensure adequacy of counsel when authorizing bills that justify lethal force? Mr. Hunter, you have 1 minute to respond.
First, I would like to try other alternatives so we don't have the same type of conflict in our community, like better alternatives such as non-lethal force. Then I would also talk to them about other options that we may have, like hire a legal counsel to ensure all the bills are constitutionally right.
Alrighty, is that all you have to say?
Yes, sir.
Alrighty, Mr. Site Owner, I'll read the question to you again. How would you work with the county executive and the county board to ensure adequacy of counsel when authorizing bills that justify lethal force?
Alrighty. I'm going to split this up into two parts, and I'll attack the first part. When it comes to lethal force, I'll give you my generalized stance on it. Requiring officers, or anyone for that matter, to use less than lethal force it's not, you don't need to do that. The Supreme Court has already said in many constitutional cases, if their conduct warrants the discharge of lethal force, then you are not required to use less than lethal force. And I got to ask here, for our civilians and our citizens out there, what less than lethal force do they have? They got to go out with a bat and break someone's kneecaps and hope that they stop shooting at them? I mean, I don't get what you're trying to expect with that. And with our officers, are you trying to tell them to head first into a building armed with only a taser rather than a rifle? I think it's a very silly idea, and it has major grave consequences. And on the legal counsel part, you are required by the charter. The district attorney is required by charter to provide legal counsel to the county board and the executive in the event that they so choose. And I've already given this legal counsel many, many times before by making sure and ensuring that the bills going past our county board are constitutionally sufficient and they don't have any vague legal verbiage that would get shot down later on.
Alrighty,
And
Mr.
I think
Senator. Sorry about that. Sorry for cutting
it's
you off,
fine.
but
Don't
we
worry
ran
about
out of time. I think the viewers get what you're trying to say here. Hunter, do you have anything else to add?
No, I do not.
Alrighty. Next question, Mr. Senator. What would you view to be the most important precedent set by the Supreme Court and why? Go right ahead.
I would have to say I would like to go off of the dissent of Antonin Scalia and Hamdi v. Rumsfeld. So there's this long-standing legal ideology called "Enter arma enim silent legis," and this was established based off of a Caesarean context as well as the court case Ex parte Milligan. And what this legal, I guess, truism said is, when the cannons roar, the laws fall silent. And so in Scalia's dissent in Hamdi v. Rumsfeld, he said, and he disputed that. He said that when the cannons roar is when we need the laws the most, and I have to agree more. And especially when our COVID times and you see people grabbing constantly for emergency powers or powers whenever they can, you get a sense of lawlessness. You don't see the law being applied at all. You don't see it anywhere else, and so you have to wonder where the hell all this power is coming from, because no one agreed for these powers to be conferred onto someone. A legislative body didn't agree for them, and it was just a single unitary executive who decided, I'm going to have all these powers now.
Alrighty.
And am I done?
Sorry, Mr. Senator. Yes, you are done. You are.
Alrighty.
Apologies. Mr. Hunter, go ahead. Your time starts now. And the question again is, what would you view to be the most important precedent set by the Supreme Court and why?
This is a very difficult question. There is so many that have shaped our judicial system. It comes down to a personal opinion. I'd probably have to say it's Mayberry versus Madison. This one established the process of judicial review where the courts are able to strike down on laws should they be unconstitutional. This ability to review is a form of regulating our elected representatives on the board.
Is that all, Mr. Hunter?
Yes, sir.
Hey, can I talk a bit about legal theory here real quick?
Go ahead, Sight.
So this comes from Justice Stephen Breyer, and one of the lectures that he gave to the Harvard Law School was that the court is only as powerful as much as it is respected. And this notion and this ideology that the court can strike down a law, it's a very, very brave one, but it only works if you have an executive or a legislature who's willing to back that. I mean, if you've seen in any historical context in the United States, such as Worcester v. Georgia, you had Andrew Jackson basically helping out a state who refused to comply with the Supreme Court. Or what about Brown v. Board of Education? The school district refused, or not the school district, the governor refused to integrate the schools, and no one did anything about it. No one. The court doesn't have the sword. They only have the book. They only have the balance, and that's what's so important about all this. That the most important element for our courts is to be a respected institution.
Thank you, Mr. Senator, for that. But your time is up. Mr. Hunter, this next question comes from the Ridgeway County Executive Matrix Ock. I don't know what Matrix it is named, or whatever that bozo's name is. But The question is, how will the district attorney work in conjunction with the county executive and members of the board in prosecution of particular criminals? So I'm assuming he means how will he sort of target large name criminals that are known within the community. Mr. Hunter, your minute starts now.
We would all work together to try to find their source and what they're coming from. I would work with the police department and I would work with the county executive to try to stop the well, not try to stop, but like try to stop these large acts of criminal organizations.
Is that all?
Yes, sir.
Alrighty, Mr. Senator, go ahead.
One thing that I gotta say is a very scary thing is when you have an executive or someone who are working together with the district attorney's office to prosecute a specific group of people. I think that's a very dangerous thing, and I think that needs to be shielded away and locked in a closet and then never looked upon again. Justice is a natural thing, just like the weather. I think any chance of political motivation behind the justice system will cause great harm to it. And I think that's exactly what you're going to get when you have a county executive or a county board trying to push for a group of people to be prosecuted. Is you're going to have a lot of politics then starting to enter the playing field, and that's when things are going to start getting really, really dangerous. So.
Alrighty, thank you for that, Mr. Sideowner. Hunter, do you have any response to what Mr. Sideowner said?
Yes, I do. What he's wanting is he's just wanting to work alone. He doesn't want any other support and any other opinions to work with him. He doesn't want. He's thinking this is like political suicide when it's really not. You could use all the help you get. You can continue to work from it.
Mr.
That is all.
Senator, anything else to respond to that?
This is why I say experience is important, because anyone who knows anything about a judicial system can say that an independent judiciary and an independent prosecutor know, how do I put this? They stay separate. The politics stay separate of the prosecutions. If we look at, and I hate to get political with the IRL stuff here, but if you look at the Chauvin trial and the George Floyd stuff, that has all been turned into a bunch of political mush, right? And I think it's ridiculous, because now instead of a criminal trial or a fair trial, it is turned to a bunch of sound bites getting pushed and broadcast amongst the network. And that's what happens when you start politicizing the judiciary.
Alrighty, thank you for that, Mr. Sideowner. Mr. Speaker, former Speaker Matrix, County Executive Matrix, thank you for that question. We're moving on here now. Mr. Senator, this is a question for you from Mr. Paul JKL, my former boss himself. As district attorney, would you advise the county board on new legislation? If you could advise fully against any passed bill, what would it be and why? 1 minute on the clock starts now.
Okay. First off, the district attorney has to advise on legislation. That's important, because that's how you get good legislation. That's how you get good laws. That's how you get good bills. And to not advise on that, that's when the quality is going to start going down, and you're going to start seeing a bunch of random crap packaged into a piece of paper with the word act over it. What was the second part?
If you could advise fully against any passed bill, what would it be and why?
I would have to say it's probably the executive pro tempore bill, because it violates the separation of powers. You have this position that was created by Tom Donovan Smith and the rest of the county board members, and all it does is it gives someone, a bunch of power, and it's a legislative official who somehow starts to have a bunch of executive power and powers conferred onto him, and I just think that's a bit ridiculous. Because the charter provision was, yes, we can allow people to preside over our board, but now you get this crap of pork attached to this bill, so now the EPT can do whatever the hell he wants.
Alrighty, Mr. Owner, thank you for that statement. Mr. Hunter, you have 30 seconds to respond, starting now.
I would advise against the recent vehicular assault and lethal force against the Motorized Vehicles Act. I am deeply concerned about the legal ramifications of authorizing lethal force against vehicles for what will be essentially come down to some dodgy driving in the game. This is already being used as an excuse by law enforcement individuals to use firearms to destroy vehicles who have been involved in a car accident. That is all.
Alrighty, Mr. Hunter,
Can
thank you
I
for that.
give
Mr.
a rebuttal
Seidoner,
to
I
that?
will give you 30 seconds to rebuttal starting now.
So if you've read the legislation, you're going to notice a very key point. This is a very key word. You're going to find this in a lot of statutes, so listen up here. It's called intent. You have to have intent to cause those accidents or to be an asshole. There has to have that malicious intent requirement for the crime before you're able to, quote unquote, dispatch someone. And that's the important thing about this law, is it allows you to kill a bunch of assholes who keep, crashing into your car over and over again, and
Mr.
in
Seidoner,
situations you would otherwise be able to do nothing about.
that is the end of your 30 seconds. Thank you very much. Alrighty. Thank you both. Now we're going to move on to your closing remarks. So, Mr. Hunter, you are first in our closing remarks, and you may start now. 1 minute on the clock.
Who you vote for depends on the kind of future you want for the Ridgeway judicial system. Do you want some same old authority figures advocating solely from law enforcement perspective? Then vote for site owner. However, if you actually want a meaningful change in the establishment of fair prosecution system, then I am the reasonable choice. Ridgeway is bigger than hating on all the criminals or hating on all police officers. Our system needs to advocate for reasonable and proportionate penalties for those committing severe crimes, but also leniency for understanding in matters that don't cause excessive harm to others. Thank you to my opponent for this debate, to RNN, and thank you, audience, for your time.
Alrighty, Hunter, thank you for that closing remarks. Kind of lame that you didn't give me a shout out, but alrighty, Mr. Site Owner, your minute starts now.
Well, you can finally close the Google Doc there, buddy. I think the most important thing for a law system, and I've told everyone about this since the very beginning, is it needs to be fun. It needs to be enjoyable. If we're not making this fun and enjoyable for everyone, then what the hell are we doing here? If we're making this stressful for a law enforcement officer, if we're making this, a terrible, terrible week for a law enforcement officer because he accidentally shot someone or something like that, then what the hell are we doing? If we're trying to be toxic with each other and allow this type of, I can't find, for the lack of a better word, this system where people just report each other and then they get prosecuted and that's the end of it, that's not fun, that's toxic. And the most important thing a district attorney can do is promote a fun and enjoyable law system. And when I was in Mayflower and I was a judge there, one thing that I absolutely hated the most is that the prosecutors didn't give a shit about the cases they were sending through the pipeline. It was like they were crapping directly into the toilet and then sending that into my chambers. And I think that was so stupid and I hated that the most. And that's what I'm doing here, is because this is the most important thing that we can do. We can make a fun and enjoyable legal system. We can have prosecutors who give a damn about the cases that they're prosecuting. We can have investigators who give a damn about the cases they're investigating. That's why we have the warrant system that I proposed and that's going to be sent through. Is because it should require work. It should require effort to take someone to trial. And that's the most important thing that we can do, is we can make it a fun and enjoyable system for all. And that's the one thing that Hunter is going to come in here and do, is he's just going to act as another internal affairs agency. And I gotta ask though, right? You have all of these IA agencies, a part of all of these other agencies, a part of all these other departments, and they're providing their officer accountability. So what the hell is the district attorney's office going to do? Play Big Brother to them? Breathe down their neck or something?
That's
ridiculous.
That's all the time we have for your rebuttal. I don't know. There's some random music playing on my computer. Real quick. That concludes the Voters' Choice debate. We would like to thank everyone who is currently watching for supporting Channel 14, the Ridgeway News Network. Also, thank you to our candidates for Ridgeway County District Attorney's Office, Hunter Yeyes, and Site Owner for giving. What is this music? Oh my God! For giving us a brief moment of your time. Have a good night, and remember to cast your vote in just a few hours for the election. And we will see you for the continued election coverage on our Twitter. youtube.com/RNNRoblox. Have a great evening. Shout out Atlas Worldwide. All right, peace, everyone. Thanks, boys. Bye.
What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? When you were 8 and you had bad traits, you go to school and learn the golden rule. So why are you acting like a bloody fool? If you get hot, then you must get cool. Bad boys, what you gonna do? Or what you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? Or what you gonna do when they come for you? You chuck it on that one, you chuck it on this one, you chuck it on your mother and you chuck it on your father, you chuck it on your brother and you chuck it on your sister, you chuck it on that one and you chuck it on me. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
It's not about winning, it's about fun.
What's that?
Fun is when you... Fun is... It's like... It's kinda... Sorta like a... What is fun? Let me spell it for you.